Good Thursday morning, everyone. Doug Farrar, editor of the Touchdown Wire website on the USA Today Sports Media Group. And as always, Mark Schofield, our five-tool guy. Mark, week 3, here it comes.
Week 3, the season just takes on that sort of like life of its own, right? Like once we get into week 1, it just like steamrolls through. Like it goes so fast.
Speaking of steamroll.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue.
Davis Mills.
Good luck, Davis.
It's not his fault.
No.
It's not his fault. I would have loved to have seen Tyrod Taylor against Carolina's defense because Tyrod's been playing his butt off. Now he's hurt.
Yep.
Poor Tyrod. He has like the worst luck. He's like the Ted McGinley of quarterbacks. Just so Davis Mills against the Panthers defense. And I took a deep dive on Carolina's defense. I talked to Cody Alexander, who, when I did the match game 3-parter in 2018, I was talking to Chris Brown, Smart Football, who everyone knows and is awesome, about this whole idea I had of match coverage. And he said, well, if you want to talk about college concepts, Cody Alexander is your guy. And yeah, of course, we know that to be true. Cody is a high school coach in Texas, runs matchquarters.com, which if you want to know about how college defenses work and how they're stemming up to the pros, Cody's your guy. And Cody was telling me then about how homogenous NFL defenses tend to be. And he said that at some point, it's, you know, if Dave Aranda, Kirby Smart, one of these guys is going to come up from college and match the new idea of taking college offensive concepts and taking them, which is going on since like 2005. And someone's going to do it on defense. And that has now happened. And it's Phil Snow. Yep. And this defense through, I mean, Jameis Winston had 5 touchdowns and no interceptions against the Packers in week 1. And it turns out that's a Packers thing. We're going to talk about that later because their defense is awful. And then he runs into the Panthers defense and he looks like old Jameis. And that's not Jameis's fault. It's not Davis Mills's fault. It's anyone playing Carolina's defense now is in for a 3-hour cavalcade of ass whippings. And it's I did a piece last year because Brandon Staley, when it was the Rams DC, now the Chargers head coach, was talking about tying fronts to coverage. And he does that brilliantly. Todd Bowles does that brilliantly. There are guys who understand that concept. Well, if you're calling defense in the Big 12, you had damn well better do that.
Right.
Snow is so good at that. There are elements of Carolina's defense right now, and I wrote a long piece on it. I could do a whole hour on just that because it's so fascinating. But there are elements of, Cody brought up Georgia's defense, which I was looking at cut-ups this morning on Coach Vass's Patreon thing, his film library, which is awesome on Huddle. Go check out Coach Vass because we love him.
Yeah.
And it's that same thing of you never know what front it's going to be. And last year, I mean, I'll say it again. This is the defense that Aaron Rodgers called strange. And he said, it's a bunch of 3-3-5 stack. And it was up to 5 guys in cut. I mean, and Aaron Rodgers still has trouble against 2 high. And he's looking at 5 high going, I don't know what I'm looking at. And Sean Payton, after the Panthers beat the brakes off the Saints, said, we couldn't really, our communication with protection was not good. And Teron Armstead, their great left tackle, said the same thing. So what Phil Snow is doing, so the Georgia thing, a lot of elements to me of the 85 Bears, which was we're going to bring as many as 7 guys. We're going to cover the hots and we're going to bank on our guys getting there. And even if there's somebody wide open 25 yards downfield, your quarterback is not going to be able to discern that because he's going to be pulling turf out of his mouth.
Right.
Then Rex Ryan came in and said, okay, I'm going to take some of the 46, and Jeff Fisher did this too, some of the 46 and use zone exchange elements, zone coverage elements. But he was just like, hell with it. I'm going to run man. But this is a fascinating defense. And here comes Davis Mills into the teeth of that. I don't know really what to say about Houston's offense. I will be very interested to see as Carolina goes on through the season if anyone tries to do to them what the Dolphins did in 85 to give the Bears their only loss that year, which was they basically went kind of proto spread and just, okay, death by 1,000 paper cuts. We will meet your, exceedingly quick rush with 3-step drops and, spread them out and go. So
yeah, I mean,
I was talking to Cody about that, and he said, yeah, but the problem with the Panthers is they have guys to cover that. They can cover you 5 across because they have the athletes to do that. This is the best defense in the NFL. And if they keep this up, Sam Darnold's playing pretty, watch out.
Yeah, I mean, the Panthers might be for real. I mean, I think there's that sequence before halftime where they ran the same blitz 3 times in a row, and they couldn't figure it out because both times you've got Chin and Shaq Thompson mugged up, and each time they opened to Shaq Thompson, the center and the left side of the line slid his way, and every single time Thompson dropped, and it was Chin that came, like every single time.
And the third one, that exchange where I think it was Burris's interception. Oh,
yeah.
no,
It was incomplete interception.
Yeah. It's evil.
Yeah.
So Josh Allen, are we a little worried? I'm a little worried.
I mean, I think we're a little worried, not overly worried, but I mean, in the cursory study that I've done of him, it does seem like he's not trusting things with his eyes, which was sort of the conversation we were having about Josh Allen during that sort of 3-game stretch last year.
Well, what did we say last year? Defenses are waiting him out. They're not blitzing him, they're waiting him out. And I spent some time this morning, watching Allen. And one of the things I wrote down was the static offense problem has moved from Arizona to Buffalo. They're not giving him designed first and quick second read openings. And as much as Josh Allen progressed last year, that's still a problem for him. He's not a full field reader. Maybe he will be, maybe he won't be. Some guys aren't, and it's okay. But if he's not, you got to scheme your way around that. And Brian Daboll did that last year. This year, it's very, they'll run some condensed formations, but it's like spread your guys off and just, get open. And the problem is their receivers are getting matched. I mean, he had the huge play to Stephon Diggs, but that was Stephon Diggs mossing Xavier Howard because he had to stop and wait for the ball.
Right.
It's kind of a problem. And here comes Washington playing a crap ton of man coverage this year. Only the Saints have more per Sports Info Solutions, which is smart when you sign William Jackson III and he's a top 5 man corner. I'll be fascinated to see if and how, if so, Daboll maybe opens the playbook up. Because this looks to me, we talk about Josh Allen's regression. To me, this is kind of a regression of the entire passing game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what's happening here. I mean, it's interesting. The interception they threw against Miami, that was empty, and it was a situation where he was late.
Yeah.
He was just late with his read. He was late with his throw, sort of a toss or double slant concept where ball's going to get out. He's late with it. Of course, Xavier Howard is a fantastic coverage defender, so he's able to beat him to the spot, beat Diggs to the spot on the slant route. This has sort of been the sort of constant thing with Allen, right? The speeding himself up, speeding up his decisions, speeding up his reads. He's a little bit slow right now. He's a little bit slow with his eyes. And until that gets sorted out, he might struggle. But I mean, they're at the same time, they're 1-1. They just had a big win against Miami, and that was probably more to do with their defense and Miami struggles on offense. And Pittsburgh played a very good game against them defensively in week 1, where they're able to get pressure with 4. The problem is Washington could probably do that too.
Yeah. Pittsburgh blitzed him twice. Let's see. Allen faced 5 or more rushers against the Dolphins on 11 dropbacks, completing 4 of 11 passes for 56 yards. And that's very unusual for a Brian Flores defense, because usually they're bringing the house. They're playing a lot of zero and just go for it. So,
well, I mean, that's what we talked about last week, right? How is Flores going to do it?
That's how he did it.
Yeah.
Wait him out. You bring pressure with 4, maybe 5 a couple times. And the problem with that's not blitz numbers, because if they're playing 5 up, 5 across, bear front, or 5-1, whatever, then that's your base. But still, you're getting pressure with your base front, and Washington hasn't been as impactful with that through the first 2 games as you might have expected, although Jonathan Allen just killed Daniel Jones multiple times last Thursday. But yeah, if they can get pressure with 4 and drop and just wait Josh Allen out, yeah, this is going to be a thing this season, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
And last year, Brian Daboll solved it for Allen by really scheming stuff up well. I don't know why the packages seem more, I don't want to say boring or vanilla, but it doesn't look like it looked last year.
Right.
Is what I'll say. Bears at Browns. It's Justin Fields time. Matt Nagy has already said that Andy Dalton will be the starter again when he's healthy, which makes sense, as Fields has proven to be better in every possible category, alas.
Right.
You wrote a great piece on Fields. I just a couple things. I thought he was a little too eager to run when he had anticipation shots downfield, but Nagy's offense is not going to give you a lot of quick, easy openings. You kind of have to wait for it. Kind of that same thing.
Yeah.
On the interception, Bengals sent a blitz. Fields just missed the late drop from the line, completely missed. I think right now he either looks too frenetic or too mechanical, and I don't really blame him. He hasn't had reps. He had 1 game with the starters in the preseason. I don't know how much more you can mishandle a situation with a guy that you traded up to get.
Yep. I mean, we've been banning about the way they've handled him for a while now, but at the same time, he comes into that game and you see the ability to unlock portions of the Matt Nagy playbook being what it is, almost instantly. Some aggression shots downfield. Yes, he unlocks some athleticism, and even when he makes mistakes on zone reads and keeps or shouldn't keep it, he does the wrong thing, he's able to get himself out of it because of his athletic ability. I don't see why he that gives the job back. I just don't. I think the plan is to draft Justin Fields and develop him for the next couple of years. He's somebody I think has to learn by doing, because of the mistakes that he's making at times, the reads and decisions that he's making or not making. You can't just learn it from watching. He has to learn by doing, because it's those wait them out kind of things you were just talking about, those feel moments where he has to decide to do one thing or another in a blink of an eye, or sorting out protections, which was a bugaboo of his in the preseason, cadence, snap, all that stuff. You don't learn it by watching, you learn it by doing. And so I think whether he performs extremely well or not, he needs to remain their starting quarterback if he's going to get to where he needs to be.
And there were a couple of near misses / drops. I think Robinson had one. There, It could have been more. It was what it was. I wish they would give him the opportunity to succeed or show the need for more development on his own merits, as opposed to the sort of Andy Dalton hanging over his head.
Yeah. It's been a bad situation the way they've handled it, but as this is the 20th anniversary of Drew Bledsoe's injury,
yes,
there's an opportunity with the door open. Justin Fields is walking through that door.
Yeah, as you introed in your piece, could get Wally pipped.
Yep.
Cleveland secondary is still figuring itself out, so it could be a good opportunity for Fields. On the other side, Odell might be back. He was full go on Wednesday. I guess he's speaking to the media today for the first time this season or in a long time.
In a while.
Jarvis Landry's out with a knee injury. So three of Baker Mayfield's 4 completions of 20 or more air yards have been to tight ends this season. 1 to Harrison Bryant, 2 to David Njoku, and then the other one to Anthony Schwartz, the rookie receiver, who has been a nice deep threat. I'll just keep pounding the table on this. They've got to be able to create explosive plays beyond scheme. And if they get Odell back, yeah. Now the Bears defense is up and down. So you got 2 defenses sort of in conflict with themselves, which makes it interesting. If Odell can go, then I wonder if Stefanski dials back on the 13. And I think they lead the league in 13 personnel in the passing game again this year. I wonder if that flips around. I wonder last year if the heavy reliance on the, the shot. We're going to talk about shot plays with multi-tight end sets because there are a couple offenses that are killing defenses.
Yeah.
The Browns being one of them. I wonder if Odell at full go changes the way they array themselves against defenses.
I mean, he might. I mean, because he gives you more of that vertical threat, although you still have Schwartz. Denver actually leads the league in 13 personnel overall with 17% of their snaps in 13. Cleveland, 15% of their snaps, 21 in 13 personnel, 12 dropbacks, 10 completions, no touchdowns, 1 interception, but 16.3 yards per attempt with 12.5 air yards per attempt for Cleveland out of 13 personnel this year.
There you go. And so it is. So interesting game. Ravens at Lions. To me, the Lions right now, they're, new head coach, trying to develop things, trying to figure out if they have a franchise quarterback, which of course they don't. The Lions are a team right now. They can put together about a half of winning football in a game. They had a great comeback against the Niners in week 1 that almost worked. And then they kind of held serve against the Packers in the first half before, I guess, it can't rain or Jared Goff, has problems or whatever.
Right.
Water finds its own level and so do quarterbacks. And now they have the Ravens to deal with. And by the way, the Lions still stink in man coverage. Not that you'd want to play man against Lamar. Most teams don't. And it's the run game that tests your discipline more than any other. So
yes. And the Lions need a new quarterback. I mean, Jared Goff is what he is. And unfortunately for the Lions, I don't know if this is the year to need a draft quarterback. It's a rather interesting class at the college level. I think this game's obviously more about Lamar. And I wrote after they beat the Chiefs that this is the sort of, okay, the league has not figured him out because there are things that Lamar Jackson can do that you just can't figure out. Like, you might know what he's going to do, but knowing what he's going to do and then stopping him from doing it are two completely different things. And even though they lost in week 1, when they had the go-ahead drive at the end that, Derek Carr then just matched, Louis Riddick said that, 8 is the great equalizer. And that's it. Like, you might have the right defense called, you might have the best athlete on your side of the football spying him, and he can still find a way to beat you. And Deontay Lee wrote a piece about it. Stephen Ruiz is just up with a piece about it over at the Rainer about how Lamar against the Chiefs won with a run game that was almost as efficient, if not more efficient, than a passing game in today's NFL, which is fascinating to think about. That's how they win. And I will also just mention Baltimore coming out pregame with the Omar whistle from The Wire in a tribute to Michael K. Williams was absolutely incredible. Just goosebumps. Exactly. And I follow a lot of Ravens fans. They were calling for that in the week leading up to that game, and they did it, and it was incredible. And kudos to them for that.
Yeah, it was awesome. A couple of things. When we talk about offenses being multiple, we automatically think of the passing game. You have to be multiple in the passing game. The Ravens are two things that occurred to me watching that game over again when we got the illegal All-22, because Game Pass is still screwing around. There was one early play where and we're going to talk about the Chiefs run defense a little later. Ouch. They faked the camera guy out because like two tight ends went right. I don't know. I don't think it was counter bash. 2 tight ends went right. Halfback went this way after the mesh point, the read exchange. Lamar ran to the right. Camera guy goes over here. Lamar goes over there.
Yeah.
It's so when people say Greg Roman's offense is predictable, I laugh for a couple of reasons. And that's one of them. And then when people say that Lamar can't read, like he's not a full field reader. Well, he is an amazing reader in the way they ask him to be, which is he can read the gaps. He can read the run opportunities. Yep. He orchestrates the entire run game and creates impossible conflicts for defenders with his mere presence. It's like the 3D chess version of what Vic did with the Falcons in the mid 2000s. Yep. So when we say that Lamar can't, and give your players the opportunity to do what they can. Now, do I still have questions about Lamar as a passer? Sure. Is that going to come up and bite him in the ass again in the playoffs? Probably. But it's fun to watch now. And
yeah, it's fun to watch now.
The Lions deal with it.
No, and I mean, I think the play that sort of sums up their run game and how effective it is the play from week 1 where there was obviously a miscommunication. You had counter bash called where both right guard and right tackle pull to the left guard, left tackle pull to the right. Those 4 bodies collide. They still got 6 yards on the play. Like, even though 4 of your blockers take themselves out of it, you still get 6 yards on the play. That's how efficient and effective their run game can be.
Never go full Muschamp, kids. That's all.
Yeah.
Never go full Muschamp. Colts at Titans. So Jacob Eason versus Tennessee. Nope. Or Brett Hundley.
Brett Hundley, apparently.
Or maybe Carson
Doyle is out.
Carson Wentz without ankles.
Yeah.
Who knows? It's like a demolition derby with nothing but Ford Pintos.
Yeah.
Because Tennessee's pass defense is still horrible.
Right.
Don't play man if you can't play man. And they don't even win the award. They're the second worst don't play man if you can't play man team in their own division.
Yeah.
Urban, because apparently everyone's Alabama.
Apparently.
So I really don't know what to say there. Let's move on to Chargers at Chiefs. Well, I mean, if you
I really don't have any. Julio looks good.
Eason throws 5 passes.
I don't.
On the second or third pass. Hey, I'm going to test Jalen Ramsey. Really?
Right. I mean,
come on.
You know,
stop.
Yeah, I don't really. I'm sorry to fans of these 2 teams, but yeah.
Ugh. And Derrick Henry will probably go full Derrick Henry and do it.
Yeah.
Don't be too aggressive on the edge.
No.
Titans.
Unless you want your face taken off.
Yeah. Run through a bleeper's face.
Yep.
Over and over and over. Yeah. Chargers at Chiefs. So the Ravens busted Patrick Mahomes' streak of perfect September games. Odafe Owe, wow, did all kinds of
yes.
He never had a sack. Okay, sure.
Yeah. Pressure is production, kids. Just remember that.
You was it one of the PFF guys said you pay for pressure, not sacks.
I think it was Eager that said that.
Probably Eager.
Yeah.
So the Chiefs had never lost in September with Mahomes as a starter, and he had never thrown an interception. Both of those things changed. That's not what I'm worried about. I don't, you can see the different offense because they brought in all these different offensive linemen with, they're going from zone to gap in it, just from a personnel stance and it's a schema. That's going to take a few weeks to figure out. I'm not worried about their offense. Their defense is horrid. 31st in DVOA. Only the Lions are worse. 25th against the pass, dead last against the run. Now they've played the Browns and the Ravens, so you can attribute some of that to, and I don't think DVOA is adjusting for opponent. I think that starts like week 4, week 5.
Yeah.
But I watched very intently what the hell is going on. And I think the move, it's a 2-parter. You move Chris Jones to the outside. That's part of the problem. And then you bring in Jaron Reed from Seattle, who is a great interior sort of speed guy getting through the pocket. Not really my number one choice as a run plugger. So now they got Jones on the outside. And when they had Jones and Derek Nottie inside before, and Jones was still moving, but he was primarily like a 4-eye guy. When they had Jones, that worked. They're getting gashed inside, and Jones is outside providing pressure, but they don't really have anyone to stop this. And if they don't figure, I wonder, I don't believe this, but the whole idea of if we run the ball and run clock and keep Mahomes off the field, that didn't work before because Mahomes would come in and if you give him 4 minutes, he's still going to throw for 5 touchdowns. That changed. But this is now a severe weakness. And unless they want to move Jones back inside or find a way to, give Jaron Reed power pills. Now the Chargers aren't that sort of force multiplier run offense, but they're good at that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm more in the lines of it was Cleveland and it was Baltimore, and they've got 13 personnel stuff we were talking about with Cleveland. We were just talking about the variation in Baltimore's run game. I want to see it against the Chargers. If it continues this week, then yeah, I think it's push the panic button kind of moment. I think, but given those two offenses they just went up against and what all the things that Greg Roman dials up in the run game. I mean, I'm looking through some of these plays right now. You had the one you were talking about where they like fake out the cameraman. You have other designs, and some of them look. There was a Latavius Murray run that went for looking at it right now. I think it went for like just like 31 yards or something. Like that. No, it was just a 6-yard run where it stopped inside, and he has to cut out to the outside, and there's just no contain. And so he breaks to the left side and gets upfield for a big gain. I mean, I want to see if it continues against lesser run teams, and this is the first week to sort of see that.
Yeah. Has Rashaan Slater been the best rookie in the NFL so far? I think the case could be made.
I think the case could be made too. I mean, you see him last week against Parsons. You see him week 1, against a familiar foe in Chase Young at times. He's looked fantastic. And, you don't need to look far. I mean, Duke Manyweather's putting the cut-ups on the timeline for everybody. Just go to Duke's, Big Duke 50. You'll see him. He's been fantastic. He's been absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I think he has been the best rookie.
So he gets Chase Young. He gets Michael Parsons. Now he gets Chris Jones. I don't think Chris Jones is going to have a very good day.
No, I mean, what we've seen from
Slater
so far.
I honestly, Mark, don't remember the last time I saw. I remember I wrote an article when everyone was saying, "Oh, Slater should kick inside because he has short arms." And I'm like, I wrote a whole article saying, "No, I should have just done no with tape."
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I can't remember the last time I saw a left tackle come in this plug and play and have badass against badass 3 weeks in a row. And, Chris Jones will get his bites because he's, great. But, when Parsons would have, he gave up a pressure to Bradley and on kind of that cross chop.
Yeah.
That's really the only ding I've seen it through the preseason. No pressures, no sacks, no hits, 4 pressures, 4 hurries through 2 games. I mean, I don't know what to debit. I don't know what to look at and go, well, maybe you could improve on this or that. That's just exceedingly rare.
Yes, very rare.
Saints at Patriots. Saints licking their wounds. So was New England's give me a 80-20, 50-50, 40-60, whatever. How much of New England's defensive performance was about them, and how much of it was Zach Wilson doing his interpretive, performance art out there?
I mean, I think it was like maybe 65-35 New England's defense. I mean, Juwan Bentley is playing extremely well, which is a bit of a surprise, both in coverage and as a pass rusher. You had that first interception broken down brilliantly by that 12-year-old on TikTok. And it's Bentley who's the free rusher, who's got the shot at Zach Wilson and forces that throw, influences it high, and it's off target. What was interesting about that game,
and Corey Davis has no hops. That was
great.
I was just dead.
What was interesting about that game, Doug, and we often hear the idea that Belichick uses the first couple of games as an extended preseason. And if you want evidence of what that looks like, going into it, I was talking to DJ Ben, the New York Daily News beat reporter for the Jets, who's fantastic, about, who's going to cover Corey Davis. Is it a JC Jackson game? Is it a Jalen Mills and safety help like we sometimes see Belichick do? He switched it up. There were some snaps with JC Jackson on him. There were some snaps with Jonathan Jones, some snaps with Jalen Mills, some snaps with Juwan Williams. He's still trying to figure out, Belichick is, what he has in that secondary without Stephon Gilmore. He's still trying to figure out what he has up front, with some of the guys that they added, Hightower back from the COVID opt-out. But I think it was a very good defensive performance early. I think the second 2 interceptions from Wilson, that was him stuck in sort of quicksand, stuck in, panic mode, where he was sort of trying to make things happen. And so I think it was more the Patriots defense, particularly early in that game.
Yeah, Wilson is I went down the rabbit hole with the whole Panthers thing, so I did not have time to watch New England's offense, which I tend to. Oh, we're going to talk about on the podcast. I know Mark will watch. What I've heard, and I need to catch up on this. What I've heard is Mac Jones is a sufficient completion machine, and then people were throwing. Well, yeah, he's averaging like 3 air yards per attempt, so it had better be efficient.
Right.
I mean, how much are they just asking?
There are opportunities.
Are they
for
asking
him
him to do stuff that's just training wheels?
I don't think so. I mean, there was a double pass early in that game where he takes the crossing route to Jonnu Smith, but Aguilar is open deep for a touchdown and he doesn't throw it. There are other opportunities. They had a sail concept early in that game. Aguilar's open deep. I think he wants to hit Jacoby Myers on the sail. Myers stumbles, so then he decides to check it down. There are opportunities for him to push the ball downfield. And I think this is one of those moments for a young quarterback sort of learning how to appropriately, balance aggression versus conservative play, and they're sort of
this stuff and just not hitting it. Is it kind of that Derek Carr thing where it's off and on?
I think it's more early Derek Carr where he's seeing it and not throwing it. Like he did force one post on a double post where there was a flag. So he knew he had the free play. So it's not that he's just not seeing it or looking for them. He's just more comfortable checking the ball down. Now, part of it, look, you get 2 interceptions early, you're up early. Like maybe he's thinking, maybe it's been drilled into his head, like don't force it if you don't completely have it. And so he's like, look, we're up 2 scores. I'm going to check the ball down. But there are people already pushing the panic button on this in New England. I think this is more similar to some of the other discussions we've had. Okay, we watch it. Does it continue? If we're still having this conversation, say Halloween, that he's afraid to throw downfield, then I think we have a deeper discussion, perhaps a deeper problem.
Well, and the Saints they'll throw different fronts at you. They play more man than any team in the NFL.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. And New England could credibly say, look, our defense is back. Our run game is there. Damian Harris just went full beast mode on that touchdown run. So, I wouldn't be surprised if that's their mindset. Would you just be the game manager, distribute the ball, don't take on.
I mean, this is what I said going into this year. It's going to look like the early Brady run where it's like ball control passing game, try to win with the defense, don't force the issue, don't make a ton of mistakes. That's what we saw in week 2, and people are starting to panic over it. And part of it might be,
they won. I would say they won their first 2 Super Bowls. By the third, they had started to unlock.
Yeah, but the first 2 was that kind of the issue is, and I think perhaps there's a reason for that concern. This isn't 2003. Like it's a different era, and winning with ball control, passing, and defense could have worked then. Maybe it isn't the recipe for success now. I think that's the underlying current for some of the concern in New England.
Falcons at Giants. Kenny Golladay and Kadarius Toney are yelling at Jason Garrett, so that's great. I will say that the Falcons secondary should provide an excellent bounce back opportunity for the Giants. I know you do Big Blue View. Do Golladay and Toney have a point?
I don't know if they have a point.
Do you even know what Kadarius Toney is? That whole situation seems to me like coaches wanted one thing and the scouts wanted another. And mixed up.
I mean, Garrett tried in week 1 to get Toney involved a couple of different times. You might want to block Von Miller on that jet sweep. I'm just saying it seems to be a good idea to try to at least accomplish that task.
Well, they didn't,
I just think
they didn't do that because also Nate Solder was running into Saquon Barkley and letting go.
Yeah, I mean, there was that stuff too. What's so interesting about this Giants offense is I am starting to feel that Jones needs to be the vertical passer that we didn't think he was. Coming out of Duke, it was all 0 1-step drop. Quick.
You've made that point before that go against his college tendencies.
Yeah, because he seems so much more comfortable and decisive on vertical stuff, even throwing with anticipation. Even the missed shot play to Darius Slayton on the Mills against the sort of too high look, safety drives down. He steps up, takes a thump, throws a catchable ball. I mean, it wasn't like he threw it out of the back of the end zone. Slayton got his hands to it. But there are other sort of anticipation throws, seam routes, dig routes, band-aid, post routes off of play action where he seems more comfortable. Then when he's trying to read stick, he's slow with it. He's throwing pick sixes on stick. Like, I think we always say, look, you draft a quarterback, you find out what he liked to run in high school and college and Pop Warner even, and run that. This might be this sort of flip side to that, which is, okay, well, that's what he ran at Duke, but he's better doing this stuff.
Attempts of over 20 air yards, first 2 games of the season. Teddy Bridgewater, Trevor Lawrence, and Josh Allen are tied with 13.
Yep.
You have to go way down the list. And here's Daniel Jones with 5 deep attempts, 2 completions, 75 yards, and a touchdown.
Yep. And the numbers were also good last year on throws over 20 yards.
They were. I don't remember exactly what they were, but they were really good.
Yeah. And so I think that's where they need to be as an offense. Now, what's interesting, I'll do these video breakdowns and, Giants fans will say like, oh, so you're saying that they need to be absolutely perfect. I'm not saying that they need to be absolutely perfect, but this is where your quarterback seems more comfortable. And you would think that you hire Jason Garrett, Mr. Air Coryell, Mr. Downfield Passing School. That's what the idea was. But then Garrett's calling stick 14 times a game.
You know what the problem is? If you get Air Coryell without Don Coryell, you might have a problem. Last year, 20 air yards or more, 20 completions on 43 attempts for 652 yards, 15.2 yards per attempt, 6 touchdowns, no interception, quarterback rating of 132.5. Yeah.
That seems good to me, Doug, but I'm not a coach,
but it seems good to me too.
I'm just an idiot in his basement in front of a microphone, but it seems good to me.
There you go. That's the new 2 idiots in their basement.
2 idiots with a microphone.
Yeah.
It's like that Bexon, right? 2 turntables and a microphone.
Wiki. Bengals at Steelers for the second straight week. Jamar Chase caught a touchdown pass of over 20 air yards. Speaking of air yards. Per Next Gen Stats, the Bengals had 2 deep touchdowns all last season. I went and looked at Joe Burrow's 3 picks. One was a gimme off a bat at the line of scrimmage. One was a terrible decision to fit a deep crossbody throw to T. Higgins, who I was watching T. Higgins thinking that want to get away commercial, like,
yeah,
not a good game. And Jalen Johnson, who's great, just was waiting to jump that route. He was like, he had time to stand there and like put his Asante Samuel jersey on and go get it. And then the pick 6 for Roquan Smith was, I wanted to I didn't have time to do this. I wanted to go check their transcripts and see if Burrow explained what he was looking at, because he's trying to hit Tyler Boyd in the seam and Smith was moving over before he threw it and Burrow didn't appear to see it at all. And that was weird, that whole thing. And then he throws 2 touchdowns and, becomes Joe Burrow again. That whole sequence was weird. And here come the Steelers, who are throwing all kinds of weird shit at quarterbacks.
Yeah. I mean, the interception, particularly the pick 6, was just a disaster. It's zone coverage. He's trying to throw a spot route, curl route, like right into it. You've got both linebackers reading it. And he seemingly checked
Roquan
to
Smith
that.
is like, if I'm Joe Burrow and I'm right here and Roquan Smith is already moving over here, and here's Roquan Smith when I throw the ball, and here's Tyler Boyd. What are we doing?
And the other thing is Burrow's eyes on that play after he catches the snap are right to Tyler Boyd, and they don't go anywhere else.
Well,
and
why do you think Roquan's going over there?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Steelers defense, we saw what it did to Josh Allen in week 1. There's a chance to duplicate that here in week 2. I think the bigger thing, though, is we have officially pushed the panic button on Ben Roethlisberger at this point, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think that's official. Like, speaking of stick, like he was afraid to throw the outside out route on stick last week. The Steelers offense is an issue.
Yeah. Lori Fitzpatrick, our excellent comrade, did a great tape piece on Najee Harris. Too early to worry, but maybe give him a lead blocker.
Yeah.
Cardinals at Jaguars.
Take the under in this one, kids. That's what we're saying.
Take all the unders. Yes, indeed. Cardinals at Jaguars. You wrote this week that Kyler Murray is frustrated that the NFL should be terrified.
Yep.
I will say this. Last season, Cliff Kingsbury ran 10, 11, and 21 personnel only, exclusively.
Yep.
Had no other personnel packages. Ran more 10 than anyone else. This season, they've already mixed 12 and 13 in. So whatever happened, like I said, the static passing game has moved from Arizona to Buffalo. Strange thing to do in the fall, but whatever.
I'm not ready to write it yet, but I have the draft in Google Drive of Cliff Kingsbury is grown up and the NFL should be terrified.
I wrote that halfway through his first season when he started mixing in personnel packages, and then he went back to whatever. So, you know,
I mean, that's why I haven't pushed send
like
on
a
it. Push
Google
send
merge,
on it
just
yet.
keep writing it every year.
But they're moving guys around. I love the seam that Kyler hit to Max Williams out of a 12 personnel YY wing to the right. You've got a man beater concept to the backside, the zone beater concept to the front side. They're doing a lot of different things with personnel packages. They're moving Hopkins and Green around a little bit. Not as much as we'd probably like to see, but you're seeing Hopkins in the slot a little bit more. You're seeing Green on both sides. And so there's growth there.
YY wing is the new thing, by the way.
That seems to be the new thing. I've seen so many teams running it now. YY wing, maybe it's too high stuff. I don't know. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But Kyler is fantastic so far this year. I know he had some interceptions in that game, but still, I think he's anticipating windows better. I think he's reading defenses better. And when you add the ability to then make the kind of extend the play, spin, roll left, make that throw to Rondale Moore, and just send Gus Johnson and Aqib Talib in the booth into sort of the stratosphere. That's similar to Lamar. Like, that's the stuff you can't like game plan for.
When I like go out for my coffee breaks in the morning, hit Starbucks, hit the grocery store, whatever, bookstore, get out of the house. Aqib's podcast, Catching Fades, is I'll like learn stuff, and at the same time I'll almost have to pull over because I'm laughing so hard.
Yeah. Aqib is great. And those two were incredible in the booth on Sunday. I'm just going to say that. And look, we all know that if Gus Johnson is doing a game, like, you stop and you watch, because he had the interception Oklahoma, Nebraska the day before too.
Yep. Yeah, I wrote about that. That was the craziest interception I've ever seen. So Gus Johnson does a Seahawks game. Does like the world implode? Like
the world just implodes. I mean, that's an end of days moment. Yeah.
So Jaguars and man coverage, 20 catches allowed and 23 targets for 238 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Is that bad?
That's not great.
So the Jaguars are your week 3 going into clubhouse leader and don't play man if you can't play man. Let's keep track of that. And we're working on the don't play man if you can't play man t-shirts. Trust me. Kyler Murray against man coverage this season, 14 of 20 for 195 yards, 138 air yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Also, he's probably the most efficient deep passer in the NFL right now. So, stop the fight.
Yeah.
You know who isn't the most efficient deep passer in the NFL right now? Trevor Lawrence.
The other guy. Yeah.
And
it's weird.
You can't blame the quarterback.
Yeah.
To a greater or lesser degree.
It's weird. I had somebody ask me if, Lawrence going deep and then Jones with all his checkdowns is just 2 young quarterbacks trying to figure out what they can and can't do. And, there might be something to that, but I do think there's a bit more of a schematic element in Jacksonville with what they're asking him to do than there is in New England.
Boy, did you just tee me up, because we're going to go to Jets and Broncos. Remember what Zach Wilson said in the preseason? We all went, oh, that's so beautiful. I'm just learning what I can do. These mistakes will go away. I'm just testing things out. I'm seeing where the boundaries are. Well,
found those boundaries pretty early.
Right in the face. Here comes Vic Fangio.
Yeah. I don't think this ends well for
here comes Patrick
the New York Jets.
Too.
Yeah. I think the bigger conversation though is Teddy.
Well, it's Teddy. It's Cortland. Think about this. Cortland Sutton had a career day in week 2.
Yep.
He's fully healthy. You got Hamler. You got, that whole receiver core. Tim Patrick is like your 4th receiver, and he'd be a WR2 on like 20 other teams. And Teddy is turning it loose. Remember, Pat Shurmur, their OC, is the same guy who turned Case Keenum into a great deep passer in 2017 with the Vikings.
Yep.
Had Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen and guys who could go up and So the Broncos with
Denver might be for real. And we all said coming into the season, right? Denver's roster is great. The quarterback position is the huge question mark.
When I did that tape piece with Chris Harris, who is now with the Chargers, played with the Broncos for years, he's like, the only thing we could never figure out was the quarterback. And it looks like they have.
They might have figured it out.
Yeah. Teddy's turning it loose through 2 weeks. He's tied for the lead with 13 attempts of 20 or more air yards, completing 4 of those passes for 130 yards. So deep passes, efficiency, it's always an iffy thing. But yeah, speaking of deep passes, so the Dolphins at Raiders, I'm very excited to see what John Gruden will dial up against Miami's aggressive defense. The Raiders are killing teams on vertical concepts at 2 and 3 tight ends. They'll run 4 verts out of 13.
Yeah.
John Gruden, you sick bleep. I love it. Darren Waller, Foster Moreau, and we talked about, and I wrote about in week 1 against the Ravens, where Carr moved the safety over and he had Ruggs and he dumped it off to the fullback, Alec Ingold. Week 2, he made that throw.
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah. I mean, Carr's aggressive. He's turning it loose.
We lampoon John Gruden for a host of reasons, and a lot of it is deserved. But as an offensive play caller, all that time he spent, grinding in his trailer when he was doing QB camp, it's showing up.
Yeah, it is. And, I think adding Ruggs into that passing game like they did against Pittsburgh is going to be a huge part of it. But it's really sort of Carr and his aggression, his willingness to turn some stuff loose, his willingness to take some chances. The touchdown to Ruggs was not just a great design, but he hung in there versus pressure off the edge, took a shot, made the throw. I think the bigger question with the Raiders might be, is their defense going to be good enough? Ben Solak wrote about this week. Others wrote about it. They don't need to be great. They just need to be good enough. Given you get Mahomes twice, you get Herbert twice. Like
corners, we don't know. Pass rush, they're getting a ton of pressure without blitzing.
Yep.
The elevated question in this game is Tua's out, which sucks. The Bills pressured Miami on 25 of their dropbacks. That offensive line. So here you have Jacoby Brissett, who, as a processor, I will say, since I'm in a good mood, to put it kindly, he's deliberate.
Yeah.
So if I'm Miami's offensive staff, and I know it's Eric Studeville and some other guy whose name I don't remember, you go back, and I know you're a Patriots fan, so you remember this very well. Week 3 of the 2016 season, Brady's out, suspended because of Deflategate. Garoppolo hurts his shoulder. They have to start Brissett in his third NFL game.
Short week.
So what do? Read opposite.
They read Veer. I mean,
over and over. They went like full Lou Holtz, and they won.
I mean, it was reminiscent of that game during the strike season when it was Walsh versus Parcells. And Walsh comes out there on the wishbone, and Parcells is on the other sideline, like just losing his mind. And Walsh is just like, "What do you want me to do?" He's just like shrugging his shoulder, like, "What do you want me to do?" It was shades of that.
Well, it was shades of the Wildcat week 3 in.
Oh, I remember that game.
The best coach in NFL history, the best coach in football history, gets
Belichick is just like
coached by Tony Sparano.
Yeah. I remember I watched that game at a restaurant with my parents in like Brandywine, Pennsylvania after a long weekend. And we were just like pulling our hair out, like, what is this?
I was watching it. I was with Football Outsiders at the time, and I wrote about that game. Like, I was taking furious notes because, that's what you had to do at that time. I'm like, I have to write about this.
Right.
So here's what I do. I would run a crap ton of read option, and I'd make Max Crosby the fulcrum guy, the epicenter.
Yeah.
Read or stay. Force him to back off, because I think that's the only way the Dolphins have a chance here offensively, is to somehow try and negate Max Crosby from just demolishing your entire offensive line. I would. Yeah. That's what I do. I don't know what they're going to do. Interesting if it happens, but that's what I do.
I mean, talk about a quarterback that Jacoby Brissett, who was like the designated like QB sneak guy at Indy for a couple of years. Like, I'm sure they'll do some things with him along those lines.
Because if they want him to drop back, like with that offensive line against the Raiders pressure packages, who's behind Brissett? Now I have to look that up.
Reed Stinnett. And I think somebody wondered, is this the first time a starter and a backup quarterback had the same 3 letters to end their last names?
Well,
That's a fun little trivia question.
all the money we're paying for databases, why can't we look that up?
Seriously, SIS should have that
I know,
somewhere.
right? I don't know. That seems more like a Pro Football Reference thing.
Yeah, maybe.
So Buccaneers at Rams. Speaking of offenses that are killing defenses with vertical shot plays and multi-tight end sets. I mean, we knew this from last year. And yeah, Gronk, but also Cameron Brate and all that. I think the Rams' ability to stress defenses with Matthew Stafford's arm is benefiting Cooper Kupp more than anyone else. This is per Next Gen Stats. He had 9 catches on 11 targets for 163 yards and 2 touchdowns in week 2, averaging 4.4 yards of separation. There are some receivers who are averaging 4.4 yards per catch. Kupp had at least 3 yards of separation on 8 of his targets, catching all 8 for 153 yards and a touchdown. This is the McVay West Coast with that now vertical element. It's a bit like what Andy Reid has always. I asked you last week, could the Rams be as explosive as the Chiefs? And the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, well, yeah, it's West Coast of the vertical component. This is what Andy's wanted to do time immemorial. If you're the Buccaneers, how do you deal with this?
Yeah, and what's interesting about this Rams offense, Joe Ferriola, who I know, he's at Next Gen. He said back in August that McVay might be calling more RPOs because Stafford's so comfortable in the shotgun. And they've called 12 RPOs, 11% of their plays this season, just 25 from 2017 to 2020. I mean, so they've already almost hit what they did in 3 years of Jared Goff. And then
I think they have more post touchdowns this year than they did in Goff's entire career.
Yeah. And then Jordan Rodriguez saw what Joey said and had a quote from McVay. We're in the shotgun a lot more than what you've typically seen in some of those early downs. We have a lot more things that we're doing both in the gun and underneath the center that you're presented to the defense. He can do so many different things, Stafford. You're not limited in any way what you can and how you can utilize him. Does that sound like a coach that's finally happy with his quarterback?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Seahawks at Vikings, and I'm in Seattle. I've been covering this team since Pete Carroll came here, and if Seahawks Titans was your intro to this, I'm going to tell you, you're going to see games like this from the Seahawks. They have the talent to hang with anyone. They get too aggressive to Derrick Henry in the second half, and that went about as well as expected. In the first half, they were like, everyone converge on Derrick Henry. And then second half, like, oh, now we're going to rush Ryan Tannehill, and Derrick Henry went, okay.
Right.
They give the Titans extra chances far too often with penalties, including the taunting penalties the NFL really needs to rein in. By the way, I wrote about this week. In the 2020 season, there were 10 taunting penalties all year, including the postseason. Through 2 weeks, 10. Not good.
Yeah, it's an issue. And I'm reminded of that.
Just to this point of emphasis, and after 3 weeks, they figure it out. They better freaking figure it out. Yeah. The offense is still a bit disjointed at times. Russell Wilson got a bit frenetic. I think that should have been a safety, by the way. They kind of blew that call. And it's going to take a while for Wilson to, I think, realize that you're now in a Shane Waldron offense. You don't have to make everything happen. The offense will open itself for you. Right. Now, whenever he hits Tyler Lockett, I don't know, was it Waldman this week who compared Tyler Lockett to Lance Allworth? And I thought,
yes, it was Waldman.
Brilliant comp that was.
Yeah.
Go YouTube Bambi, guys. Go YouTube Lance Allworth, and that's Mozart how it was meant to be played. Seahawks and Vikings cornerbacks have combined for 6 touchdowns allowed and 0 interceptions in the first 2 weeks of the season. You like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So could be bombs away. Minnesota. Dalvin Cook has an ankle thing, but I think he'll go, and I think Pete Carroll's already worried about that, which he should be.
Yeah.
Okay. Packers at 49ers. So the big story this week was Matt LaFleur had to go to Joe Barry, the defensive coordinator, at halftime and tell him, look, either pick a lane, either go full rush or full coverage. You can't rush for and play man behind. And everyone treated this as if it was the dumbest thing in Barry's case that any coach is. Why can't you figure this out? I'm going to take a couple minutes here and do story time. And I
story time. We love story time.
This in the book, Genius of Desperation, plug. Super Bowl I, one of the more important games in Packers history. And everyone's telling Vince Lombardi, you cannot lose this game. You cannot lose this game. We just merged with the AFL, but you cannot lose this game. We can't go out and lay an egg against the Chiefs. Well, at halftime, the Chiefs are holding serve. It's 14-10 Packers. And the reason was Hank Stram and his staff studied Phil Bengtson's Packers defense and figured out that they blitzed an average of 3 times a game. So, okay, we're going to run. Basically, it was as if Cliff Kingsbury or Brian Dable was coaching Len Dawson. It was 5 wide, and it might have been 2 backs, but it was still 5 wide. And the Sean Payton element of flaring the back out, pretty snap. Yep. So at the half, Lombardi goes up to Phil Bengtson and says, and I can only imagine how Lombardi said it, but I imagine it was incredibly loud. Now would be the time to bring the house. 3rd play of the second half, they run what's called blitz 3. Everyone up the middle, like they were bringing guys off the bench to blitz. Dawson throws an empty beer can to Willie Wood. Wood returns it to the 5-yard line. Ball game. Packers take over. My point is, and we've heard, the Manning cast week 1, they were talking about second half adjustments. Does it matter? Does it not? Well, you can go different ways with that. But I think in this case, it's not as big a deal as we think it is. What is a big deal is that the Packers defense sucks, and it sucks for multiple reasons, and it's a big problem. I'll start with the front.
Yeah.
I was watching the Packers defense right after I watched the Panthers defense. I wouldn't recommend that.
Right.
That was unpleasant. I did not see, and I'm not exaggerating, Mark. I did not see one line stunt from the Packers in that entire game. Whether they're rushing 4, rushing 5 blitz, I don't care. If as an offensive line, all you've got is guys coming straight at you, unless you're just beating a line with numbers, like it's 8-on-5 and you got a 4-on-2 on this side. Right. If they're coming straight at you without any sort of forcing protection adjustments, it doesn't really matter, especially if Zadarius Smith is out. So that's problem 1. Problem 2 is, I don't know what kind of coverages they're calling, but it was a touchdown to Cephas, where they at one point had 3 guys on, who's the tight end? Who's Detroit's tight end?
Hawkinson.
Thank you. I remember Greg Cosell in 2019 talking about the Patriots, and he said, and it was a great term, and it's kind of how I think about defenses when I look at them. They said they had front multiplicity and coverage consistency, which means the front is a petri dish. It could be anything. The coverage is, pretty set.
Yeah.
I think the Packers have front blandness and coverage over complication. Basically, nothing's working.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's working for them right now. They couldn't get pressure on Jared Goff. The touchdown to Cephas, you've got, like you said, 3 guys. You've got 2 guys covering Hawkinson up the seam, the safety splitter.
And I think King comes over and Cephas is like, hi, throw me the ball.
Yeah, I mean, eventually you've got 5 over 2 in the middle of the field with 5 guys over Hawkinson and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And Cephas is just in the back left corner of the end zone outside the G in Green Bay, with nobody within 15 yards of him. And yeah, it's a coverage bust. It's early this season, but sometimes these issues and plays are indicative of too much being put on plates. Like you said, they're trying to do too much, maybe in the secondary, and guys are making mistakes. You have to clean that up.
Occurred to me, you know what this reminds me of? Mike Nolan last year.
Yeah.
Where he came in and the players were like, we don't know what we're supposed to do. It's so complicated. And it's like nothing works. It's very, very much like that.
And I think the secondary issues might be the bigger long-term story for how this season goes. I think the short-term story are the problems up front. The old double team Kenny Clark from last year, right? Double team him. You'll have everything else blocked up. Now you get the San Francisco run game.
He's not getting any help.
Yeah, he's not getting any help. So you double him, you're fine. Now you get the San Francisco run game.
Well, and I was talking with Orlovsky about this, and he kind of jokingly said Packers don't have the guys up front. I'm like, well, yeah, they do. And you look at Morgan Fox of the Panthers, who made secret superstars this week. I mean, Phil Snow has Morgan Fox looking like Cameron Hayward. And who the hell was Morgan Fox before he got there? They signed him in the offseason. He was like a rotational guy for the Rams. And now he's just a stud. And this is like the inverse.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
No. I mean, I was
Run
just,
game.
yeah. I mean, now you get the Niners run game, you get the stuff Kyle Shanahan dials up. Maybe it's not as exotic as what we see in Baltimore, but it could be if they use more Trey Lance.
Should this be a Trey Lance game?
I think it should be at least at
Garoppolo is
times.
still missing stuff all over the place. Maybe that doesn't matter against this defense, but he's still.
I think you should see Trey Lance for like 15 plays at least against this and do some stuff in the run game. Show those with different looks. I think Kyle Shanahan, has to do that this weekend.
Do they do what they did against the Raiders in the preseason where they
I don't know if you go
back and forth.
I don't know if you go that far, but you better have at least a drive or two of Trey Lance stuff ready.
Because if they can create a semblance of what the Ravens challenge you with.
Yeah, exactly.
Rodgers against the Lions took with the Lions too high. Coverages gave him for the most part heavy Aaron Jones game, which was the thing to do. The deep throw to Devontae Adams, Eli pointed this out on the Manning cast, came against too high drop to cover one robber. And the touchdown to Robert Tonyan was that Aaron Rodgers doing Aaron Rodgers shit. There's one play a game at least where you simply go next. Wait, we can't. It was like the long crosser to Devontae in week 1 where Devontae has 2 Saints run him and Rodgers throws it into a window like this.
Yeah, I mean, that was the Tonyan 2-man safety splitter.
Yeah.
What's great about that, you do a video on it, and I get people telling me, well, Alan Lazard is open on the slant, and it's just like, what? Like
some people just need fun.
Yeah, I mean, that too high look, if you're going to throw that safety splitter, I mean, the way you coach is if it's there, you take it immediately. Otherwise, it's going to be too late. It was there. He took it immediately, threw it into his shoebox, like whatever, move on.
Some people just don't like fun.
That's also true.
I don't know. Eagles at Cowboys. Very interested to see what the Cowboys do with Micah Parsons in this game. They made him mostly an edge defender against the Chargers, and he was, poor Storm Norton, the Bulaga's replacement for the Chargers at right tackle.
Yeah.
Unpleasant. If they do that this week, they can line him up against Lane Johnson at right tackle. Wouldn't recommend it, or Jordan Mailata. Now, this was interesting because Mailata, rugby guy, great story.
Yeah.
He's developed a lot. Hey, cool. And I'm not maligning Pro Football Focus. I use it all the time. They had him credited with 0 pressures of any kind against the 49ers. And I'm watching the tape going, I saw him give up a sack to Bosa. And there were 3 other instances in which it was quick game and the 49ers were countering with mush rush. I was getting like LSU flashbacks. Where if the pass play had taken 1 step longer, Mailata could have given up 4 sacks. So he's still vulnerable. He can get bold. He can get he will lose guys to either side. And Micah Parsons, he's this fast, lighter guy. He has very heavy hands. And it's unusual for a rookie defensive lineman at any position to have that sort of developed hand technique, because a lot of the time you got the 20-hour rule, which of course nobody follows. Guys come into the league from college, they're used to being able to just, hey, I can get around this guy.
Right.
Parsons is much more elevated than that. So that's something to watch. Jalen Hurts and missed opportunities and kind of where that passing game is. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was almost as if, we like to joke sometimes that so-and-so read the tweets. It was almost as if Nick Sirianni read the tweets, because after week 1, it was Hurts won't throw deep. It was similar to the Mac Jones discussion. Average depth of target was like 3.4, like he's not attacking downfield. Very first pass and play, they dial up sort of a throwback post over concept. He's got Devonta Smith open over the top for a touchdown, and he's late with it. Ball hangs, pass broken up. He did have the 91-yarder or so to Quez Watkins, but then they try to get too cute. 4th and 3, they're running basically Philly special. It was a game of missed opportunities for Hurts. That was a bad sequence, and I know Baldy broke that down on Monday. It was a game of missed opportunities in the passing game for Hurts, and now the other question is, can he attack over the middle? Because every throw we saw last week was outside the numbers at the line of scrimmage. there's just nothing in the middle of the field, anywhere close to the middle of the field. And we all know, look, if you know going into a game as a defense that, look, this guy's not going to throw here, you can start taking things away. It's the sort of corollary of Rex Ryan versus Tom Brady, right? Brady wants to attack you over the middle. Rex would drop 8, just obliterate the crossers and force Brady to attack him to the outside. It's kind of the inverse of that. Try to take that stuff away out on the outside, make Jalen Hurts beat you over the middle. If he does, you tip your hat. Great job. Right now, I don't know if he can do that.
I had someone mention to me that outside of the Colts play calling in the red zone, what Sirianni put together was maybe the second worst overall play design he saw all week.
Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. And even the first, I think, I understand like the Greg Ward, former quarterback, throw to your current quarterback. They tried to be way too cute with that because you've got Rager running the crosser. Does he have the freedom to break back like as a secondary outlet, or are you going all in on fooling them? And if you're going to do that, they had all this pre-snap motion movement, eye candy. Defense knows at that point something tricky's coming. Mm-hmm. Like just line up and run it. Like if you're going to do it, like think about how they did it to the Patriots in the Super Bowl. They kind of just like lined up. You had the late shift by Foles, but it wasn't like, empty to condensed to motion to all this stuff.
Is this the offensive version of what the Packers are going through this year, what the Cowboys went through last year, where it's too complicated? There's too much.
I mean, I think that one play was. I don't think the offense as a whole is, but it's something to watch.
Yeah. I was watching the 30 for 30 on the 85 Bears. Just because Phil Snow's defense got me thinking about that. So I wanted to see some stuff. And Mike Singletary said when Buddy first came in 81, his playbook was like that. And the players went to him and said, look, we can't do all of this. And he went, and the defense went and became what it was. Yeah. Sometimes that works.
Yeah. I mean, Mike Leach has an index card. So
yeah,
sometimes you just run what you run.
Sometimes you just run what you run. All right. Good stuff as always, man. Keep it all the touchdown wire. Thoughts and prayers to Davis Mills. And we'll be talking next week.
Sounds good, friends. Matt Corral video breakdown just posted. So go get it.
Talk about a guy with ups and downs. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yep. All right. Later, man.
There we go, friends. Have a good one.